Hello, sixth graders. This is Mrs. Munyon. We're going to think about changing percents into decimals and moving decimals into percents today. I think this will be reviewed. It'll make a lot of sense to you. We're just going to think about how it applies to life as well. All right, so these little tabs right here are the results of a survey in which students at Martin Middle School said what their favorite subjects are, and I would just like to note that only 16% chose the arts versus 28% preferred math. That's my kind of school. Go them. Nothing against art, just think it's pretty cool. So it says in number 1, write a fraction with the denominator of 100 to represent the percent of each subject. If you think about this, a percent is just saying how many out of 100 would choose that or be that, or what percentage of is out of 100. Sorry, just turning off my heater so you can hear. Okay, so math, that was 28%, so 28 out of every 100 students said they liked math the best. Science is right here, and that was 21%, so 21 students out of every 100. Art, 16%, that's 16 students out of every 100. Social studies, that's 15%, so 15 students out of every 100. English, 13%, 13 students out of every 100. And the other category was 7 students out of every 100. What do you think the other category was? Yeah, I want to know who wrote lunch. Exactly. I don't know, though. Maybe it was PE. Then in number 2, it says write each fraction from exercise 1 as a decimal. And I just want to remind you guys that a decimal, we represent that as and then we have tenths and hundredths. Okay? So if we put that on a place value chart, it makes it very simple to then convert to a decimal. I'm going to change colors so we can see better. Math was 28 out of 100. So if I wrote that on the place value chart, it looks like that. So I'm just going to write 28 hundredths here. Science, let me move this up a little bit. Science was 21 out of 100. So that's 0.21 or 21 hundredths. Art was 16% or 16 out of 100. So that would be 0 and 16 hundredths. Social studies was 15% or 15 out of 100. English was 13% or 13 out of 100. The other category is where I think someone could get tripped up because it's 7%. So, but remember, it's out of 100. So if we wrote that on the place value chart, the 7 would go in the hundredths column, which means we have this funny little space right here. We don't have any tenths. We need to represent that as 0 tenths. So the decimal form of 7 hundredths is 0 and 7 hundredths. So it says compare the decimals to the percents. Explain how to write a percent as a decimal. Well, if you take off the percent sign, let's look at this up here. If we take off the percent sign, then we have a whole number, and technically all we did was move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So 7%, take that off, the decimal 1, 2. Then it becomes there. Okay, I can see that. We just moved it 2 places to the left to convert from a percent to a decimal. Let's apply that in the next page. So here it says write a percent as a decimal, divide by 100 and remove the percent sign. This is the same as moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. So what did they just say there? If we have 48 hundredths, all fractions are just a way of writing a division problem, right? So we could write it this way, 48 divided by 100. And then if we did the math, okay, so 100 into 480, that's 400, subtract, bring down. 100 into 800 goes 8 times, 800, subtract. Oh, 0.48, isn't that what we've been doing? So in essence, 48%, move the decimal, equals 0 and 48 hundredths. It makes sense. So another way to write a fraction as a decimal is to write the percent as a fraction and then write the fraction as a decimal. That's what we were doing on the other page. 56% is the same as 56 hundredths. And when we say that out loud, 56 hundredths, we know how to write the decimal. Here's another one, 8 hundredths. Remember to put the 8 in the hundredths place. Put a 0 in the tenths because there aren't any, and you're golden. Here's another example, 2%. Remember to put the 2 in the hundredths place because 2% is 2 out of every 100. Let's try some. So 32%, that's 32 hundredths, or 32 hundredths. 6%, maybe we would put that on a place value chart. So we have and tenths and hundredths. Oops, get that TH in there. So 6%, that's 6 out of every 100. We need a 0 there. So that's 0 and 6 hundredths. What about this one here, 93%? Well, maybe I could try just moving the decimal. I know that's possible, right? 1, 2, 93, 0, and 93 hundredths. No problem. We can do that. So writing decimals as percents, it would make sense that we just move the decimal the other way. So we have 0.36 or 36 hundredths. We'll move it. 1, 2. That is 36%. All right, so let's try that with example 4 here. With 38.38, that's 38 hundredths because the 8 is in the hundredths place in that decimal, or 38%. We could also move the decimal 1, 2, 38%. This method here would be especially useful if we have a single digit out of 100, like if it were 6 hundredths, then we could just say 6, and then 1, 2, and then it would make sense where we put that 0, right? There we go, that's a 6. Let's try number 5, 0.2 or 2 tenths as a percent. So if you notice here, tenths, we can't write that as a percent because percents are out of 100, but it's easy enough to multiply 10 by 10 and get 100. Whatever you do to the denominator, you must also do to the numerator. And once you're at 20 hundredths, well, then you know that is 20%. So let's try some ideas here. First, let's try with 0.47. We could move the decimal, right? 1, 2. So that is 47%. And then for 0.73 or 73 hundredths, we could write that as a fraction. 73 out of 100, that is 73%. And then for 0.5, let's try this one. That is 5 tenths, right? Because that is in the tenths place. Well, we know that we can multiply that by 10 over 10 to get 10 times 10 is 100. 5 times 10 is 50. So that is 50%. Did any of you think it was 5%? Watch out for that. Example number 6. The United States produces more corn than any other country, producing 0.4 or 4/10 of the total corn crops, right? 4/10 is a percent. Well, here they just decided to move the decimal. 1, 2. You can check that. 4/10 times 10 over 10 equals 100. 4 times 10 is 40. That's 40%. We're good. Let's try these. Write each percent as a decimal. Well, 27 out of 100. That is 27 hundredths. 15%. I could move the decimal 1, 2. That is 15 hundredths. 4%. Here's one where I think it would be really helpful to move the decimal. 1, 2. So that is 0 and 4 hundredths. Being very careful that we don't write it as 4/10 because percents represent how many out of 100. That's a no. Write each decimal as a percent. Okay, cool. So this is 3/10. Let's multiply that by 10 over 10 to get out of 100ths. And then we have 10 times 10, 100, 3 times 10, 30. So this is 30%. 82 hundredths. 82 hundredths. Which method are you liking best, by the way? Think about that, okay? 82 hundredths, that's 82%. 51, 0, 5, 1, 51 hundredths. Let's move the decimal. 1, 2, that's 51%. Oh my goodness, this is such an interesting fact. You guys got to listen to this. About 7/10 of the human body is water. So what percent is that? 7/10. I think I'll just move the decimal. Oops, I'm in eraser mode. Let's move it. 1, 2, or 7/10 times 10 over 10. 10 times 10, that's 100. 7 times 10, that's 70. So 70% of our body is water. Crazy, huh? I bet you already knew that, didn't you? Well, you know what? What is the relationship between percents and decimals? What would you say about that? The relationship between percents and decimals. Well, a percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100, right? We're saying, okay, so if we go back to page 1, trying to do this slowly so I don't make you dizzy. Whoops. Okay, like this one right here. This one, science. It said 21% of students preferred science or like science the best. That means that if we surveyed 100 students, 21 of them would say, yep, science is my subject. What if we surveyed 200 students? Well, we would double the numerator. Out of 200 students, 42 students would say they like science on an average based on this survey, right? Okay, so we're just saying that out of every 100, we can predict that 21 kids will like science the best. And percents can be converted to equivalent decimals by dividing by 100 and removing the percent sign. Remember how we did that? We had, I don't remember what the numbers were, but let's say it's 48 out of 100. That's the same as 48 divided by 100, okay? We're just doing it a simpler way by moving the decimal. And then we can say 48 hundredths, right? No big deal. You guys are going to be great at this. I just know it. Go practice. Let me know if you have any questions.